How would you say life is different for you now? I mean, you see, you got yourself back on track and everything, but what about in social situations, considering that while you're still an alcoholic, social situations would have revolved around drinking?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's quite the reverse now. I'm very rarely anywhere where there is alcohol. Not because I'm worried about drinking or anything. I just don't like being with people who are drinking because they talk such rubbish.
Yeah.
Once they've had a few drinks, and yeah, it reminds me of how I must have been when I was drunk, talking all rubbish and thinking I was being witty and having a good time and everything, and there was none of that at all. So my social life mostly is spent in the company of sober alcoholics that I've met in AA. I've got not all my friends, most of my friends are sober alcoholics, but I've got a few people I've worked with. They've retired now, but people I used to work with, I've got a few friends amongst them, and I see them fairly regularly, I suppose. But I don't go out to parties. If ever I go out at night, it's to an AA meeting. I go to the footy. I'm a footy fanatic. In fact, I'll go to just about any sort of footy game or any sporting contest whatsoever, apart from basketball, which I can't stand. But that's pretty much what my social life is, going to sporting events.
How do you find the drinking at sporting events, though?
But where possible, for example, when I go to the Lions game up here, I've got a seat in the non-drinking section, so that's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Usually at sporting events, there's a group of people somewhere who aren't drinking, and I look out for them, and I just go and stand or sit amongst them, so I don't have to put up with nonsense. I've got very little tolerance for drunks, I think, and in a way I'm not frightened of them, but I'm very wary of them because I know what a lunatic I was when I drank, and I expect people who drink to turn into lunatics like that too. So I keep my distance from them, basically.
Okay, but you definitely avoid places where drinking occurs, such as, parties and pubs and things like that.
I do go to the very occasional, and it's usually a work reunion type thing, maybe a couple of times a year. People are drinking there, that's fine. Nobody seems to get really drunk, so that doesn't worry me. Very occasionally I'll even go to a hotel to meet somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be the only time I'll go into a hotel or a club if it's for a legitimate reason, because I know with my mind the way it works, if I'm going into a pub for reasons other than legitimate ones, then I'm putting myself at risk, so I avoid it.
So do you still have trouble trusting yourself not to drink?
Not really, no. But by the same token, I'm very much a day-to-day proposition. All I can do, and this is what I always taught me, is just for the day, I can do something like not drink, which if I had to think, I can't drink for the rest of my life, would immediately send me off drinking. But I know that just for the day, I can do it for 24 hours. And when that day is finished and it's the next day, the day again. But it's not quite as drastic as that might sound. I don't sort of get up every morning and think, oh dear, now I've got to make sure I don't have a drink today. I very rarely think of that sort of thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Early days, certainly, that was it. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd plan my day, and I'd make sure that I told myself in the morning I wasn't going to have a drink today, and that I was going to go to however many AA meetings for that day that I'd intended to go to, and I'd make sure I'd do that.
Okay, well that's Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Could you just repeat that statistic? Sorry, I cut out.
Yeah, 10% of the population of the world are alcoholic.
Wow.
Now, of all of those alcoholics, only 10% of them make it to AA.
Yes, and
those that make it to AA, only 10% of them get any meaningful sobriety, and by that I mean over 5 years sobriety. So, in fact, only 1% of alcoholics get sober in AA. And some people manage to do it other ways, but not many. It's one hell of a disease that really is such a killer. It's really the number one killer, but so many people who die of alcoholism are